All right, get ready because we are diving deep today.
Diving deep.
Into setting the record straight on sexual health.
Love it.
We are going into the world of Dr. Reena Malik,
Okay.
a urologist who is not afraid to tackle the myths and get real about what's going on with our bodies.
Yeah, Dr. Malik's work is so refreshing.
Yeah.
Because she tackles these often taboo topics with a blend of scientific evidence, but also like genuine empathy.
Exactly. And she doesn't shy away from busting those myths.
Right.
We've all heard,
Yeah.
like, for instance, that everyone else is having way more sex than us.
Right.
But Dr. Malik says the average couple in a partnered relationship is right there with you at about once a week.
Okay.
So if you're feeling pressured by those clickbait articles about how often is normal, take a deep breath and remember you're in good company.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that comparison trap.
Oh my gosh.
Especially when it comes to something like sex. Dr. Malik really reminds us that it's not about hitting some magical number.
Right.
It's really focusing on quality over quantity.
It's about the sparks, right?
Yes.
And speaking of sparks,
Okay.
Dr. Malik also debunks the myth that sex should be painful.
Okay.
She emphasizes that pain is always a signal to stop and figure out what's going on.
What is going on?
It's often about things like proper lubrication and foreplay, not just pushing through.
Absolutely. Listening to your body is key.
Yes.
And on that note, like Dr. Malik talks about how many people, particularly women, don't even realize that responsive desire is a thing.
Yes.
They think something's wrong with them because they don't feel spontaneously turned on all the time.
Right, like we're supposed to be ready to go at the drop of a hat, thanks to Hollywood.
Exactly. But think of it this way. You might not be craving a home-cooked meal at first.
Okay.
But once you start chopping veggies, those aromas hit and suddenly you're hungry. It's similar with responsive desire. It can be cultivated and often grows with the right kind of touch and intimacy.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you.
And speaking of things we might not be giving enough attention, Dr. Malik dives deep into the often overlooked world of the pelvic floor.
Which I will add is not just a women's issue.
Yes.
Despite what some might think.
Yes. It's fascinating how this powerful group of muscles impacts everything.
Right.
From bladder control to, even sexual function for both men and women.
For both.
Yeah.
And here's a sobering thought.
Okay.
For those of us glued to our desks all day.
Yeah.
That sedentary lifestyle
could
be doing more harm than we realize.
Okay.
Dr. Malik says sitting for hours on end can weaken those crucial pelvic floor muscles.
Okay, that's definitely motivation to get up and move around more.
Right.
But are we talking about more than just bathroom breaks here?
Yeah.
How does a weak pelvic floor actually impact things in the bedroom?
Well, for men, a weakened pelvic floor can contribute to issues like erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
And for women, it can impact everything from arousal to orgasm.
Wow, it really is all connected.
It is all connected.
Dr. Malik mentioned exercises like Kegels to strengthen those muscles, right?
She did. And while Kegels can be helpful, she stresses the importance of doing them correctly.
Yeah, right.
To avoid injury, just like any exercise.
Right.
Proper form is essential.
Yes.
If you're unsure, it might be worth consulting with a pelvic floor physical therapist.
Okay.
They can guide you on proper technique.
Like having a personal trainer for your pelvic floor.
So we've talked about the pelvic floor.
Yes.
But what about those internal mechanisms that really drive desire?
Right.
Dr. Malik calls testosterone the libido king.
Yes.
And queen.
King and queen.
Why is testosterone so important for both men and women when it comes to sex drive?
Testosterone is a major player in our libido regardless of gender.
It's responsible for that get up and go, feeling that desire for intimacy and pleasure.
Yeah.
And while it's often associated with men, it's crucial for women's desire as well.
Interesting. But there are things that can tank our testosterone levels, right?
There are.
What are some of the culprits Dr. Malik highlights?
Chronic stress is a big one.
Oh, really?
When your cortisol levels are high,
testosterone
production takes a hit.
Wow.
She also points to lack of sleep, a poor diet, even excessive endurance exercise as potential culprits.
So all those late nights and back-to-back marathons might not be doing us any favors.
In
the bedroom.
In the bedroom.
Who knew?
It's all about finding a balance.
Okay.
Dr. Malik advocates for a holistic approach, prioritizing sleep, managing stress, incorporating resistance training.
Yeah.
These are all natural ways to support healthy testosterone levels.
Makes sense. It's like that old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
But what about when lifestyle changes aren't enough? Can you just inject your way to higher libido?
Dr. Malik cautions against that kind of quick fix.
Really?
She explains that if your testosterone levels are already within a normal range, simply adding more isn't going to magically solve everything. Think of it like this. Your body has a natural rhythm. And flooding it with synthetic hormones can disrupt that balance. It's like trying to force a plant to grow faster. By giving it too much fertilizer, you might end up doing more harm than good.
So working with our bodies.
Yes.
Not against them.
Exactly.
And speaking of things that might need a little extra support, Dr. Malik brought up a concerning trend she's observed. It's not just testosterone levels on the decline, but sperm counts have been dropping in men over the past 50 years.
Yes, and it's a significant decline.
Really?
Almost half, in fact.
Wow.
Dr. Malik attributes this to a few factors. One is our increasingly sedentary lifestyles. We're simply not moving our bodies as much as we used to.
Right.
And that inactivity can impact sperm production.
So getting that heart rate up isn't just good for our hearts. It's good for our swimmers.
Precisely. But it's not just about exercise. She also points to environmental factors.
Like what?
Like exposure to endocrine-disrupting chemicals.
Endocrine-disrupting chemicals? Those sound a little scary.
They sound scary.
How do those impact sperm count?
So these chemicals can mimic or interfere with our hormones. And that disruption can impact sperm production and quality.
So what can we do? Should we all become hermits and live off the grid?
No, it's not about going to extremes.
But
making conscious choices where possible.
Like what?
Switching to glass food storage containers instead of plastic. Choosing natural cleaning products. Being mindful of the ingredients in personal care products. These small steps can make a difference.
That makes me feel a little more empowered.
Yes.
Now let's talk about a topic that often carries a lot of baggage. Masturbation.
Yes.
Dr. Malik is very clear in her message.
It's
a normal and healthy part of life.
Absolutely. She encourages us to ditch the shame and guilt that often surrounds this topic.
It's about time. But what about all those myths we've heard growing up? Like, will it make you go blind?
Dr. Malik debunks that myth with a laugh, along with the idea that masturbation will decrease testosterone levels.
Really?
It's simply not true.
Good to know. So it sounds like solo exploration is nothing to be ashamed of.
Exactly. Dr. Malik sees it as a form of self-care. A way to relieve stress, understand your body, and experience pleasure on your own terms.
Speaking of pleasure, can masturbating too much have any negative effects?
Dr. Malik says that for the vast majority of people, it's perfectly healthy. However, she does mention that if someone only masturbates in the exact same way every single time, their body might become habituated to that specific type of stimulation.
Interesting. Could that make it difficult to reach climax with a partner, since they can't exactly replicate that experience?
That's precisely what Dr. Malik suggests. It's not necessarily common.
But
it's worth considering. Varying your routine and trying different things can be beneficial both solo and with a partner.
It's like anything else, trying new things keeps things interesting.
Exactly.
What about those online challenges like No Nut November? Dr. Malik seems to think they're a bit much.
She does. Dr. Malik is not a fan of these types of challenges.
Why?
Primarily because they can create unnecessary pressure and shame. For people who, for whatever reason, aren't able to or don't want to participate. It's one thing to try something new out of curiosity. It's another to force yourself into something that makes you feel bad.
She also touched on semen retention. For increased mental clarity. A lot of athletes talk about this, right?
They do. And while there might be anecdotal evidence floating around, Dr. Malik is all about the science. She says studies haven't found a clear link between abstaining from ejaculation and improved athletic performance.
Fascinating. So those pregame rituals are more about mental focus than actual physiological benefit.
Exactly. Dr. Malik even suggests that for some people, the disruption to their routine might be detrimental to their performance.
That's a new perspective. I always assumed those athletes knew what they were doing.
Interesting.
On the note of athletes and performance, let's talk about another hot topic. penis size.
Yes.
Dr. Malik tackles this head-on.
She does.
Stating the average penis size is around 5.1 to 5.3 inches.
Right, which is why it's so unfortunate that societal expectations often create this illusion that a penis should be much larger.
Yeah.
Dr. Malik emphasizes that there is no ideal size.
Right.
Everybody's different, and what truly matters is finding a partner who appreciates you for who you are.
It's about connection, not just measurements.
Exactly.
Speaking of appreciation, what about those devices and techniques that promise to increase penis size?
Yeah.
Do any of those actually?
Well, Dr. Malik says that based on current evidence, the safest and most reliable method seems to be using a traction device.
What in the world is a traction device?
Yeah.
Is that like one of those pumps you sometimes hear about?
Not exactly. Think of it like a gentle stretching device. Designed for the penis. Some studies suggest that wearing these devices for a few hours a day over several months could lead to a small increase in length.
So not exactly a quick fix.
Right. And even with newer devices that require less time.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee of dramatic results.
Right.
Pumps, on the other hand, haven't been shown to be as effective for increasing length and might even carry some risks.
What about surgery? Don't some men choose that route?
They do, but Dr. Malik doesn't recommend it. She says the risks and potential complications often outweigh the benefits.
It's your body, better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly.
It's fascinating to think about how much societal pressure there is around this topic.
It really is. And it speaks to the importance of Dr. Malik's work.
Yes.
Which emphasizes self-acceptance and focusing on what truly matters in a relationship. Connection, intimacy, and mutual pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, I know we've spent a lot of time focusing on the guys so far.
Right.
But Dr. Malik also shared some fascinating insights into female pleasure and anatomy. For instance, she debunks the myth that the vagina becomes loose from having a lot of sex.
Yes, she was very clear about that. The vagina is incredibly resilient.
So what does cause that feeling of looseness then?
Childbirth can play a role as it stretches the pelvic floor muscles.
Right.
But Dr. Malik emphasizes that it's not just about childbirth. Things like aging hormonal changes and even certain medical conditions can also contribute to a weakening of those pelvic floor muscles.
So it really is more about muscular strength and resilience than a woman's sexual history.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much misinformation is out there.
It really is.
Now let's talk about something that's often misunderstood. Squirting. I have to admit, even I'm a little unclear in what exactly it is.
You're not alone.
Okay.
Dr. Malik says it's more complex than many realize.
So it's not just, pee.
Not exactly.
Okay.
While there's some debate in the scientific community.
Okay.
Dr. Malik explains that squirting involves a different type of fluid than urine. Though it is expelled through the urethra.
Interesting. What does it mean if a woman doesn't squirt during sex?
It doesn't mean anything is wrong.
Okay.
Dr. Malik stresses that squirting is not a measure of sexual satisfaction. Or good sex.
Gotcha.
It's simply a physiological response that some women experience.
That's really good to know. Speaking of female pleasure, we have to talk about the clitoris.
Absolutely. Dr. Malik is passionate about giving this small but mighty organ the attention it deserves.
It's about time.
Did you know there are significantly fewer research articles on the clitoris compared to the penis?
Wow. I had no idea. And it's a shame because Dr. Malik emphasizes that the clitoris is essential for most women to achieve orgasm.
Precisely, she even compares it to the penis. Explaining that they both originate from the same structure during fetal development.
So how can we, as in guys, better understand the clitoris and how to stimulate it effectively?
Communication is key, according to Dr. Malik. Every woman is different, and what works for one might not work for another. It's about open communication and a willingness to explore and experiment together.
It's like a dance, right? You need to learn each other's rhythm and preferences.
Exactly. And speaking of enhancing pleasure, Dr. Malik is a big proponent of using lubrication.
Lubrication is not just for dryness anymore.
Precisely.
What?
It can enhance sensation and make sex more enjoyable for both partners.
Now let's talk about the elusive G-spot. What is that?
Dr. Malik clarifies that it's not actually a spot, but rather a zone on the front wall of the vagina, rich in nerve endings and potentially linked to intense pleasure, and even a different type of orgasm for some women.
So it's not just about the clitoris. There are multiple pathways to pleasure for women.
Exactly. And understanding the anatomy and different erogenous zones can definitely enhance intimacy.
It's like a treasure map to pleasure.
It is a treasure map.
But here's something I've always wondered.
Okay.
How long do people think sex should last?
Okay.
Versus how long it actually lasts?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Dr. Malik says there's often a disconnect between perception and reality.
Right.
Thanks in no small part to Hollywood.
Like we see those movie scenes with endless lovemaking.
Yes.
And we internalize those unrealistic expectations.
Exactly. But the truth is, the average time from penetration to ejaculation for men is much shorter than many people might think.
How long?
Typically around 5 to 7 minutes.
Well, there goes that myth about lasting all night. What about women?
On the other hand, Dr. Malik points out that women tend to prefer a longer duration.
Okay.
Closer to 18 to 25 minutes.
That's quite a gap.
It is. And it highlights the importance of prioritizing both partners' pleasure.
So it's not a race.
Not at all. It's about savoring the journey together.
And that often requires communication.
Right? Absolutely, talking openly about what feels good.
Right.
What you'd like to try.
Yeah.
And what doesn't work for you is crucial for a fulfilling and pleasurable sexual experience.
Communication is key.
Yes.
Whether we're talking about sex relationships or really anything important in life.
It really is.
Now, Dr. Malik didn't shy away from discussing some of the more challenging aspects of sexuality.
Right.
Including the impact of pornography. It's often demonized.
Yeah.
But she takes a more nuanced approach, doesn't she?
She does, while she acknowledges potential downsides.
Okay.
Especially for young people exposed to pornography before they're emotionally and developmentally ready.
Right.
She doesn't view it as inherently negative.
That makes sense. I mean, it's not like pornography is going away anytime soon.
Exactly. Dr. Malik stresses the importance of education and open communication.
Yes.
Especially for young people.
Right.
It's about helping them understand that what they see in pornography isn't necessarily a reflection of real-life intimacy and relationships.
It's like teaching media literacy, but for sex.
Precisely.
Okay.
She also brings up the potential for pornography to become addictive.
Addictive how so?
Like any activity that triggers a dopamine release.
Okay.
Watching pornography can become a way to cope with stress, boredom, or even loneliness.
Right.
And when it starts to interfere with your relationships, work, or other aspects of your life, that's when it becomes a problem.
So moderation and self-awareness are key.
Absolutely. Dr. Malik suggests being mindful of your consumption habits and seeking help if you feel like it's becoming an issue.
Good advice. Dr. Malik also discussed a rather concerning possibility.
What's that?
The impact of VR technology on how we experience intimacy in relationships.
She did, and it raises some important questions about the future of sex and relationships.
For sure.
VR is becoming increasingly realistic and accessible.
I recently tried out that new Apple Vision Pro headset.
Okay.
Talk about immersive. It literally feels like a person is right there with you.
It's incredible how rapidly technology is advancing, isn't it?
It is.
Dr. Malik wonders if, as VR becomes even more sophisticated, it could lead to people choosing virtual experiences over real-life intimacy.
It's like having a relationship without any of the complexities of a real-life connection.
Right.
It makes you wonder.
It does make you wonder, but Dr. Malik remains optimistic.
Okay.
She points out that humans are wired for connection.
Yeah.
And that desire for true intimacy will hopefully continue to drive us toward real-life relationships.
Here's hoping she's right now. Dr. Malik also discussed a topic that's often overlooked when it comes to sexual health.
Okay, what's that? Trauma is a crucial aspect of sexual well-being, and Dr. Malik is passionate about raising awareness around this topic.
Okay.
She explains that unresolved trauma can manifest in various ways, both physically and emotionally, often impacting our sex lives.
It's like our bodies remember those experiences, even when our minds try to bury them.
That's a great way to put it. Dr. Malik strongly encourages anyone who has experienced trauma to seek professional help.
Yes.
She believes that therapy is essential for healing and reclaiming your sense of safety and agency, which can then have a ripple effect on your relationships and, yes, even your sex life.
It's so important to remember that we don't have to suffer in silence.
We do not.
There's help available.
There is.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I have to ask, did Dr. Malik leave us with a final thought, something to ponder as we move through our lives?
She did. She shared some incredibly wise advice, particularly for women.
Yeah.
She said that the most important decision you'll ever make for your overall happiness and success is who you choose as your partner.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
She emphasized how crucial it is to have a partner who supports you,
Yes.
emotionally, and in pursuing your goals.
Right.
Someone who understands and respects your needs and values.
It's easy to get caught up in the hustle of life.
Oh, yeah.
Our careers, finances, all these external things. But at the end of the day, the quality of our relationships is what truly matters.
I couldn't agree more. And that's the beauty of Dr. Malik's work.
Yeah.
She helps us understand that sexual health isn't just about physical pleasure.
Right.
It's about our overall well-being and happiness. It's about feeling comfortable and confident in our own skin and connecting with others in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Now, remember that study Dr. Malik mentioned about men who ejaculate 21 times or more a month being less likely to develop prostate cancer?
Yes. A fascinating finding, isn't it?
It really is. I wonder if that has anything to do with men in satisfying relationships.
Interesting.
Being more likely to ejaculate frequently, perhaps being in a happy, fulfilling relationship is beneficial for overall health and well-being, including a lower risk of certain health issues.
That's a very insightful observation.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible those factors are interconnected.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Yes.
Healthy relationships, a healthy sex life, and overall well-being all feeding into each other.
Honestly, and it all comes back to Dr. Malik's message about the interconnectedness of our physical, emotional, and mental health.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered in this deep dive, and yet it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
There's so much to unpack, right?
Of this complex and fascinating topic.
Isn't it fascinating?
It is.
There's so much to explore when it comes to sexual health.
Yes.
And Dr. Malik encourages that continued exploration.
And speaking of exploration, one thing that really stood out to me was Dr. Malik's point about how pornography can give young people a distorted view of sex.
It's a valid concern, given how easily accessible pornography is today. Young people are exposed to a world of sexual imagery often before they're emotionally or developmentally ready to process it.
And those images often aren't even realistic.
Yeah.
It sets up these impossible expectations.
Yes.
And can even lead to anxiety or body image issues.
Exactly. It's like comparing your real-life relationship to a Hollywood movie.
Right.
It's never going to measure up.
Right.
Parents, educators, even healthcare providers need to have those open conversations with young people about pornography.
Yes.
It's about developing a healthy understanding of sexuality and relationships in the real world.
It's about context.
Yes.
Now, I've heard some couples say that watching porn together can spice things up in the bedroom.
Okay.
Or give them new ideas to try. What are Dr. Malik's thoughts on that?
Dr. Malik doesn't condemn or endorse porn for couples.
Okay.
She emphasizes responsible and consensual use. If it's a shared interest that enhances their intimacy without causing harm to the relationship, then it can be a form of entertainment and a way to explore different desires and fantasies.
But she also reminds us that it shouldn't become a replacement for real-life intimacy.
Precisely. It's all about balance and open communication within the relationship.
Makes sense. Now, there's one topic that caught my attention.
Yeah, what's that?
Dr. Malik's explanation that women actually have a prostate.
Yes. The Skene's glands, often called the female prostate, are a fascinating area of research.
I had no idea.
It highlights how much we still don't fully understand about female anatomy and sexuality.
And these glands are responsible for producing some of the fluid that's expelled during squirting, right?
That's what some researchers believe.
Okay.
Although the exact composition of that fluid is still being debated.
Okay.
It just goes to show how complex and nuanced female sexuality truly is.
It makes you realize how much we still have to learn.
It really does.
Yeah.
And as Dr. Malik reminds us, it's essential for women to understand their bodies.
Yes.
Advocate for their needs and seek help from knowledgeable healthcare providers.
Right.
If they experience any issues or discomfort.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Now, before we wrap up this incredible deep dive, I want to revisit Dr. Malik's powerful message about the importance of choosing the right partner.
It was such a profound statement.
It was.
And one that really resonated with me. She firmly believes that having a supportive and loving partner is crucial for our overall happiness and success in life.
It's so easy to get caught up in the daily grind.
I know, right?
Our careers, our to-do lists.
All of it.
But at the end of the day, those fulfilling relationships are the foundation upon which everything else is built.
Couldn't agree more. It's a powerful reminder to prioritize those relationships.
Yes.
And surround ourselves with people who lift us up and inspire us to be our best selves.
People who make us laugh.
Absolutely. Life's too short not to share it with someone who appreciates your humor and brings you joy.
This deep dive has been a wild ride.
It has.
We've debunked myths, explored fascinating research, and hopefully empowered our listeners to embrace a more open and fulfilling approach to their sexual health.
I think so.
I think so too.
It's been great.
And remember, this is just the beginning. There's a world of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered for those wanting to dive deeper. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to Dr. Malik's work and other valuable resources. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those deep dive requests coming.